Stick this in your ear.
The number one internet shock radio network.
Shock me with that deviant behavior.
Renegade Talk Radio.
A new court date of November 25th, 2024 has been set to settle the flagrant misuse of the bankruptcy auction system by backers of The Onion that attempted to buy InfoWars or Free Speech Systems. First United American Companies and The Onion both submitted initial bids for the assets of Free Speech Systems, with FUAC bidding $1.2 million and The Onion bidding $1 million, both deemed qualified by the trustee. Initially, an online live auction was scheduled for November 13th, 2024, but this was unexpectedly changed to a secret final and best bid process by the trustee without court approval, violating the sale order, which stipulated changes must be announced at the auction. FUAC's final bid increased to $3.5 million, while The Onion's increased to $1,750,000. Yet the trustee accepted The Onion's bid as the winning one, despite the procedural discrepancies. The controversy deepens with the introduction of a distributable proceeds waiver, a DPW, by the Connecticut families, which was meant to enhance The Onion's bid. This DPW, however, does not contribute any actual financial value to the bankruptcy estate, functioning only on the assumption that the Connecticut families could dictate the assets distribution as if they owned FSS, Free Speech Systems. The DPW's value was contingent and based on the assumption of what the families might receive from FUAC's bid, essentially reshuffling potential distributions rather than adding to the estate's assets. The trustee's acceptance of this non-cash conditional element as part of The Onion's bid raises significant questions about not only the auction process's fairness, but the actual existence of fraud utilized during the process.
Alex, what it is, it's bid rigging is what it is. That's exactly what they've been caught doing. So there was never any honest above-board auction in which legitimate bids were weighed or analyzed. And based on the rules that we read, first you had to pre-qualify by demonstrating that you really had the cash to make the transaction if your bid was accepted. As I told you, I put in sweat equity. I have no money, but I do have knowledge and I have friends. And we put together, I think, a very solid bid with good people who understand InfoWars and how it works and understand how the platform could go forward and continue to be the tip of the spear. Then we hear that the people from The Onion come along, they make a bid, but their bid is based on some vague promise of future cash that we may get from Alex Jones when we extract every penny out of him. So they didn't put up an all-cash bid, but they seem to have some inside deal with the bankruptcy trustee. This is an outrage, but I think justice is going to be done here. One or two things needs to happen. They need to have a new legitimate auction for these assets that is carefully monitored to demonstrate that it is honest and it's above board, or they have to take and throw out their bid and take our bid because I believe we're the only other viable bidder. There are only two possibilities here. It has to be one or the other.
An email from the auction company Transit stated that the initial bids were so complex that they necessitated a complete unauthorized change in the auction process. They sent a new bid form with instructions. The new bid procedure and instructions were not announced at the live auction as required by the sale order. The change in the sale order was never communicated to FUAC's counsel or the court until after the fact, a clear violation of the auction rules. Instead, the process was cloaked in secrecy and sabotage. Again, a new court date of November 25th, 2024 has been established by the federal court in Houston, Texas. One final note, the InfoWars crew were rushed out of the building following the auction on November 14th when the court document clearly states that there would be a wind-down process and another auction in December. The trustee had led most of the staff to believe that we had until the end of December to prepare for being unemployed.
It's Wednesday, November 20th in the year of our Lord, 2024. And you're listening to The American Journal with your host, Harrison Smith. Watch it live right now at band.video.
I think it's time to blow this.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
This is The American Journal. I'm your host, Harrison Smith. Infowars.com, band.video. We got a lot to cover today. Of course, we will hit first on what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. We also got some news about Infowars. I think you'll all be very excited to hear. In fact, I'm excited to hear it because I really haven't read the stories yet. But there's all these stories in the New York Times and Wall Street Journal about how we are now countersuing over the rigged auction. Very exciting stuff. We'll take your calls throughout the show today as well. And we're expecting an update from Simon from Florida to break down the intricate details of the new updated nuclear doctrine out of Russia. He's been digging through that in the way that only he can. So we'll talk to him in just a little bit. Let's begin today, as we do every day, with our Daily Dispatch. All right, here it is, folks, your Daily Dispatch for Wednesday, the 20th of November, 2024. World War III alert, that's the headline from Infowars.com. Republican leaders call for Biden's immediate removal under the 25th Amendment in response to his insane bombing of Russia. Republicans are looking at Biden removal after elderly president began bombing Russia on the Tuesday Alex Jones show. He covered this, as well as General Flynn calling for this. Thomas Massey is calling for this. RFK Jr. is essentially calling for this as well. What he actually says is, no, we're going to war because it's the anonymous guys in lanyards that are sending us to war. It's not even Joe Biden because he's not actually president. That's RFK Jr. saying that. So the deep state very much exposed and being foiled right now in one way or another. I'm not kidding when I say we should just move up the inauguration to like next week. I just think we should. It fits between breaking a 2-century-old rule about giving time for your horse carriage to get to Washington, D.C. from Lexington or whatever. I think we can bypass that in exchange for avoiding World War III. I think it's a small price to pay, personally. And it is getting intense. U.S. shuts Kyiv embassy down due to potential significant air attack. U.S. Embassy says to be ready for possible war with power outages. The United States shut its embassy in Kyiv on Wednesday morning due to specific information on a potential significant air attack amid jitters in the capital over possible Russian retaliation a day after a big Ukrainian strike. The Italian and Greek embassies said they'd also closed their doors after the unusual U.S. warning, while the French embassy remained open but urged its citizens to be cautious. Air raid sirens sounded briefly in Kyiv in the afternoon as the Air Force told people to seek shelter because of a missile threat. Senior officials told Ukrainians not to ignore the alert. So we'll keep you up to date on that. But it's what we told you. They've crossed the red line, and Russia is now gearing up to respond in a big way. Also in Ukraine news, Zelensky again refuses to hold elections as most Ukrainians oppose war. Ukraine is under martial law until at least February 2025. This has allowed Zelensky to refuse to leave office, outlaw opposition parties, jail politicians, and purge people deemed disloyal. Ukrainian ruler Vladimir Zelensky, whose term has ended in May of this year, presented his internal resilience plan with the country's parliament Tuesday, where he again ruled out holding elections. This comes as the wartime leader guides his country towards global nuclear Armageddon with people who largely wish the war to end. And this is, of course, our democracy. It's almost like it had to happen. It's like it wouldn't be appropriately psychotic and nonsensical for the globalists. Like, it would be outside of their MO to be fighting for democracy and not have an unelected dictator refusing to hold elections. It's like it had to be that way. It has to be not just the opposite of, like, not just a lie. It has to be a total, complete inversion for it to truly be a globalist project. So they're fulfilling that role. We'll get back into that later. Meanwhile, FEMA supervisors view Trump supporters as domestic terrorists, claims new whistleblower. And FEMA is being questioned in Congress right now. And we'll show you some of those videos and the way that our federal government just actually literally verbatim, they believe that half of the country are terrorists unworthy of basic governmental help at all, which is ironic because it is the half of the country that pays for everything. So that's a little bit strange. We'll get back into that. Nancy Mace, meanwhile, is making headlines. Representative Nancy Mace speaks to the Gateway Pundit about resolution to ban men from using women's bathroom and changing rooms on Capitol Hill and ensuing death threats. So Congresswoman Nancy Mace is getting death threats for saying that she does not want a new transgender woman, man in a dress, pantsuit type thing from using the women's bathroom on Capitol Hill, which... yeah, we'll talk about this. We'll very much talk about this. Lots of videos about it. It's a big kerfuffle. Some ironies there, in that Nancy Mace made history as the first woman in the Citadel at, I think, West Point. So, started off her career bashing down smashing through the glass ceiling, getting to go to men's spaces where she wasn't wanted, and now she is keeping men out of women's spaces where they aren't wanted. It's a little ironic. I'm in favor of what she's doing. I also just think it's deeply ironic. Isn't it deeply? There's something about it. I can't quite put my finger on it. But it's like the trans people are celebrating because they have the first trans, and I love the way the media says the first openly trans, as if there were some that we didn't know before. Okay, you're talking about first ladies. Now we got a conversation. But regardless, they say the first openly trans. So the trans people are probably happy because a trans person is now going to be in Congress. And people who are against the trans agenda are happy because now Congress is going to have to actually face the trans issue and realize how crazy and annoying it is and probably deal with it. So it's a good thing. It's almost like it's weird. It's like if there were no rules about black people playing baseball in Major League Baseball until Jackie Robinson got on the team. And then they made rules to stop black people from playing. You get what I'm saying? There are no rules saying, like, transgender people can't use the bathroom. Transgender people, you have to, swear an oath under your original gender. So, like, there's no rules about that until a trans person gets in. And then it's like, oh, crap, I guess we need rules about this. So it's very strange. So happy International Men's Day to Congressman-elect Tim McBride, a.k.a. Sarah McBride, who is going to bring the transgender issue into the halls of Congress, and maybe we can put a stop to it once and for all, once the Congress people realize that this is something that needs to be dealt with, not something that they can just, brush away with talking points, which is what they're doing at this point. Well, look, I think everybody has dignity, and we have to figure out a way to do. That's when it's your daughter in the locker room with some grown man leering at her in the shower. It's all, well, I mean, we got to listen to the experts on how we have to approach these mental health issues. Now that it's actually in their bathroom, that was a great impression. By that was my Mitch McConnell. Now that it's actually in their face. Now that it's actually going to be their bathrooms that they're dealing with, it's not going to be that anymore. It's going to be, we have to stop this. This is ridiculous. We can't allow this to continue. So, yeah, that'll be fun. We'll get to see that happen. Amazing. Truly amazing. Finally, we have this. No one is laughing now. New York Times reports Onion bid to buy InfoWars has been derailed. Well, I'm sorry, New York Times. Excuse me. Correction here, please. We're laughing very loud right now. No, people are laughing. It's us. InfoWars is laughing now, not no one. Well, no one's laughing now. No, we are. Ha, 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 Onion. Ha, ha, ha. I'm laughing very hard. It is hilarious. I was laughing at it on the first day, talking about how the Onion pulled this hilarious prank where they defrauded a federal procedure. Yeah, it was very funny. It was a great prank. We pulled this awesome prank. It was so funny. We collaborated to rig the results of a federally ordained bankruptcy election, and we're all going to go to jail. Ba-dum-tsh. You got him. You got him, Onion. No, we're laughing. We're going to be laughing all the way to the bank, and they'll be laughing all the way to the jail cell. The Onion claims they own Alex Jones's InfoWars website are far from reality, the New York Times has reluctantly reported. In an article Tuesday, the Onion's bid to acquire InfoWars has gotten messy. The New York Times recounted last week's whirlwind InfoWars auction saga, where joint bidders appeared to have colluded with Jones's court-appointed trustee to edge out a pro-Jones buyer. And yes, we will get back into this. We will talk all about this. That's your Daily Dispatch. I just want to say we are laughing now. We are laughing very, very happily now at the way this is all going down. And I want to remind you again that the people who put up the fake, fraudulent fiat bid that was, even when it was, totally fake and pledging money that doesn't exist and might never exist, it was still lower than the bid that we suggested. And yet they claim to have won. These are people, by the way, with hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And the numbers are out there in the stories. They say the winning bid was $1.75 million. The losing bid was $3-point-something million. There's the numbers in the articles. These are people who recently sued Remington for $70 million. Okay? The Onion was purchased by a VC, pornographer person worth tens of millions of dollars. They had plenty of money to just buy this outright and be done with it, and it'd be over. We'd be shut down. I'd be off air. They would be laughing now if they had just done that. There's something about these people. They can't just do things normally. I don't know what it is. I don't know what about them makes them like this, but it's some sort of compulsion, some sort of instinct that they're helpless to overcome, to where if they have an opportunity to do something underhanded or short-sighted, to cut corners or screw somebody over, it's like they have to do it. Like when a dog sees a piece of juicy red meat on the ground, he's not thinking about it, he just has to lunge. So like they could have just bought us outright, but because they have this I don't know, dysfunction in their character, it's like they have to try to just squeeze the last little bit. They have to try to just get one over on everybody, and now the whole thing's going to fall apart. You could just stop doing that. And tell you what, if that dysfunction, if that aspect of insanity wasn't in the mind of liberals, like we wouldn't even be in this situation in the first place, because at the heart of it all, they are lying in the center of this madness is that compulsion, is just the unwillingness to just live and let live, treat others as you like to be treated, not try to screw anybody over, not see every vulnerability as something to exploit, but rather something that is just normal. I mean, it really does go to the heart of like everything that we talk about here. And in kind of a vague way, it might be a little bit of a stretch where I'm going with this, but I also think you get it if you start looking for it. Why do we have to have all of the toothpaste at CVS locked behind plexiglass? Well, because having items on a shelf in a store that anybody can walk in without an armed guard and without, plexiglass shields, having goods for sale that you trust the customers to come in and then walk themselves to the cashier, like that's a high trust situation because it's full of vulnerabilities. You're opening up the opportunity for unscrupulous people to take advantage of you. But that's what living in civilization is about. That's what liberty is about. I was on the show a million times. Liberty is like an unguarded cookie jar. It's an unguarded pair of underwear at Target. It's the idea that you can be trusted with a vulnerability and not exploit it. Not these people, though. They can't. There's something about this mindset. I honestly think it's partly a matter of intelligence. Because like having a moral culture requires intelligence, because you have to be able to not just observe but predict second order effects. In other words, yeah, I can steal this thing right now, and the first order of effect is I get the thing. But then the second order of effect is the companies, the store's not going to be making as much money. They might have to put in security measures. Suddenly that's not going to be a possibility. Now the store's insurance rates are going up. Now they can't afford to be here. Now they leave. Now there's a food desert, and I don't have any good stores to shop anymore in my neighborhood. My neighborhood is falling apart. There's no tax revenue. My schools are now sucking. Like, all of these things are a chain of events, not because just one person stole, but when everybody in the society is behaving in just first order effects, when everybody can only achieve, immediate understanding of what's around them and can't project into the future. But what would happen if everybody acted like I do? What would happen if everybody it was a dog-eat-dog world and everybody just tried to get one over on everybody else all the time? It's hell. That's hell. I don't want to live in a world like that. Then you ask the question, what would happen if everybody was like a genuine Christian? What happened if everybody was self-sacrificing and self-effacing and could be trusted not to take advantage of vulnerabilities? Well, we'd have a country more like Japan, where you could just leave your bike on the sidewalk for weeks at a time and never think anybody's going to steal it. Even though they could, even though they might want to, they don't, because you understand that in order to have a civilization worth living in, you don't do that type of thing. So this is it's all in the milieu. It's all in the liberal mindset of just, how can we screw everybody over? How can we get one over? Because it's another aspect of projection, just like we always say with these people who break laws or commit violence against Trump supporters, like they're convinced that they're the resistance, they're the good guys in all of it because they believe the lie that Trump supporters are bad and evil and dangerous. So they think they're justified in taking action against them. In that same way, when you have a society or a civilization where everybody's trying to get one over on everybody else, part of it is them like this feeling of, if I'm not screwing somebody over, then I'm the sucker. Everybody else is trying to get me, I better get them first. And even if the other person's not trying to get you, you're going to get them because you think they're going to get you. So it's this feedback loop of mistrust and distrust and taking advantage of people. And all of it is ironically and almost symbolically coming to fruition and being made apparent by this attempted acquisition of InfoWars by the dog-eat-dog civilizational arsonists of The Onion and others. So let's get into that. I wasn't able to watch this whole video. I only watched about the first 2 minutes. So we will all watch together and learn from Alex Jones. Clip number 4. In this video, on his X account at Real Alex Jones, Deep State caught red-handed. Court documents prove The Onion did not buy InfoWars. Let's watch.
So one of the top stories in the country for the last 5-6 days has been, what is the future of InfoWars? Did The Onion really buy it? Ladies and gentlemen, I've got top bankruptcy lawyers. You can look up their names. They're some of the most respected people in the country. They say they've never one of them's been practicing almost 50 years. The other one, 40. They say they've never seen anything like this. There was no sale. There was no auction. It was all a scam. It was all a lie. They took over the building last week. I wouldn't leave. They cut the internet off. I went to our backup studios. The U.S. trustee brought him by the Justice Department, just like the last one, tried to illegally shut us down. The last one in May got fired when he tried to close the building without court authorization by Judge Chris Lopez in Houston. They had to give us back the studios and put Infowars.com back up Friday because they realized they'd screwed up after the emergency hearing Thursday when the judge said, you didn't have authorization for an auction. You had authorization in the future once we had hearings and agreed on what could be sold, because I was challenging them, claiming they own my name and my intellectual property and everything else. You can't get that into bankruptcy. You have to license it then from the person. So we were challenging this, so they just tried to sneak it under the judge. So a lot of people ask me, well, why do you ask for so much support? And I'm going to explain that in a moment. We're not like the other regular shows. We reach 60, 70, 80, 90 million people a day. We're under deep state attack, just like Trump. So when you get attacked, it's so you do get shut down. So people need to rally behind what the globalists are attacking, whether it's Alex Jones or Elon Musk or Donald Trump. But I don't have the money of Musk or Trump. But we are super effective. We're reaching more people than anybody but Elon Musk now when it comes to news. He reaches like 1 billion a day. We're reaching upwards of 100 million on the big days. So let me show you a few of these headlines. This is how they are spinning the whole thing. Oh, the New York Times. Alex Jones sues the Onion, Sandy Hook families over InfoWars deal. No, they're violating my rights. It's an illegal sale, and that's what's going on. And I'll show you my lawsuits in a moment. Alex Jones asked judge to halt sale of InfoWars site to the Onion. No, he's already halted it. Alex Jones and his allies are desperately trying to stop the sale of InfoWars to the Onion. Not desperately. The Onion bid to acquire InfoWars has gotten messy. Oh, yeah, they celebrated. I was supposed to be off the air and everything. Now I'm not. Elon Musk joins InfoWars in support in the lawsuits. Here is the lawsuit right here that I filed at 2:30 in the morning. I was up late getting it all perfect with the lawyers, all the exhibits, all the documents, the fake auction, the bid collusion. I mean, you're not going to believe it. I mean, it'll make your head spin. I mean, they did not have an auction. They had already predetermined. And they used fiat money to, quote, win it, even though it was less money. I mean, it is crazy. Here is the good bidders that I know are patriots that I was going to work with who came in. They filed their big emergency motion to disqualify Global Tetrahedron that says they're InfoWars. It just goes on and on. So this is epic. They're trying to spin it in the media. Remember, oh, he's gone. It's over. Oh, Alex is crazy last week. Oh, no. Then we're back in the building. Well, they still, are going to get it. The judge said it wasn't an auction. The judge said no one should be comfortable with this. The judge said he's pissed off. And when he sees what she's seeing now, these lawsuits and these documents that are ironclad, it's game over. They had the auction set up for 2 months, even though the judge had not agreed to an auction time. Didn't tell him, tried to sneak it through. That's in the documents. In the judge's orders, all quoted in everything we claim is documented in these exhibits. Okay? Then, 2 days before the supposed auction, it's no longer a public auction. You can't bid up. Well, an auction, by definition, means property to the highest bidder. So then it's not an auction. Then they give new rules to the other bidders that aren't the Democrats and the National Gun Control Group that are really behind all this. And they say, you're not allowed to use credit to the folks I was working with. We had to ask. They said, that's strange. And I said, watch, they're using credit. They'll be able to use credit. You won't be able to. They said, well, that's not fair. That's illegal in the bankruptcy rules that are federal law. They said, that's crazy, Alex. Nobody would do something that crazy and that illegal out in the open. Then after the fake auction, they give the real bidders the documents, and it's all the minutes of how they decided to do all this. So they let them use credit to buy InfoWars, but precluded in the rules that are in the exhibits to the other bidders that you can't use credit, but these people can. And folks, it goes. And then they lied in the emergency hearing last week and said that they had the highest bid when they didn't. And that's the U.S. trustee. And the U.S. trustee, when the judge said, well, the winning bid, the best bid, not the highest bid, they call it the best bid, is what the feds are calling it, the Justice Department. They said, well, what was it? He said, I can't tell you. The judge went, excuse me? Can't tell me the winning bid?
It's absolute insanity, folks. We'll read from some of the mainstream articles admitting this, but you can watch that video on Alex's Twitter account.
Supplements are the second fastest growing industry in America over the last few decades. AI's now outstripped it. And that's because people continue to learn how amazing the compounds are that Mother Nature gives us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, not all supplements are created equal. InfoWars MD line, more than 15 products, are all the very best you're going to find at extremely low prices. Take our CBD oil, gummies, and 1,000 milligram tincture. We private label it from a top company. They sell it retail for double what we sell it for. Does that give you an idea how amazing these products are and how low the prices are? Just get InfoWars MD CBD, test it out, see how great it is, and then I know you're going to want the other products like our ashwagandha, like our super green food, like our 95% curcuminoid, turmeric 95. They're all available under the InfoWars MD line at InfoWarsStore.com. Thank you for your support. This keeps us on air. Plus, these are game-changing products. Get yours today.
InfoWars.com is tomorrow's news today.
Taking a record of the hearts and minds of the American people, it's the American Journal with your host, Harrison Smith.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We got a lot to talk about. I got a lot of videos to show you. A lot of strange things happening right now. We're going to talk about Matt Gaetz. We're going to talk about the Young Turks. I also want to talk about what's going on in Russia, obviously, and we're going to be joined next hour by Simon from Florida, who's going to give us the breakdown on what exactly changed about the Russian doctrine, the military nuclear doctrine. It's funny, I saw on X today, somebody posted a headline that was like, long-range missiles hit Russia while Russia warns the response will be nuclear. And it was somebody posting this saying, why is nobody talking about this? And Alex Jones just responds, I am. I am actually, the one person they're trying to take off the air with everything they've got is actually the only one talking about the fact that Russia is very clearly trying to get the message to American politicians and the American people, you were playing with fire. We are about to be in nuclear exchange, and you don't even know who is making these decisions. Crazy we're the only ones talking about this, but we are. And for that reason, it's like we either got to go off our own interpretation because nobody else is talking about it. No other big news channels are doing big deep dives and translating the diplomatic doublespeak into what's actually happening. They don't seem interested in doing that. So we either got to go with our own interpretation or bring on experts who do this 24/7, like Simon from Florida, who can break it down for us very thoroughly. And we'll be joined by him at 9 a.m. We'll also be talking about what's happening with Nancy Mace and FEMA and so much more. I got videos of all this. Where should we begin? I think we'll start with Matt Gaetz. This is a big story right now. And it's one of the skills of the deep state to manufacture crisis out of nothing. And we have infinite examples of this. And the power of this strategy is like, it's confusing to me. It's inexplicable how they're able to do this. They come up with some just absolutely baseless lie out of total whole cloth. Like, hard to even express how baseless some of these claims are. And then that just becomes the thing that everybody says every time they talk about a topic. So one example would be somebody came up with the lie, and it's a lie. Like as much as anything could be a lie, that this is a lie, that Trump called U.S. servicemen suckers and losers. Never happened. There were like 10 people in the room. One of them said that he said that. The other 9 have made public statements saying, never said it, never heard it. That's ridiculous. He would never say something like that. So there's no proof, totally baseless, actually contradicted by every other person that was there. And yet, how many times have you heard people on CNN use this phrase to justify why they hate Trump, how Trump is a bad person? They're like yelling it and crying at the same time. He called our servicemen suckers and losers. How could you say he lost the truth? And it's like, it was just a lie. It was just something they just came up with one day. And that just became the thing. And 10 years from now, they'll still be saying, but Trump said suckers and losers. Like, it's wild. It's wild because of that classic phrase, what can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. They assert things without evidence, and then they just say it over and over and over and over and over. And it doesn't matter how many times you discredit it. Doesn't matter how many times you deny it. Project 2025 is another one of these where Trump makes a statement every single day that he's not about Project 2025. He didn't write it. He's never read it. It's not his official campaign. It's officially true. It's literally true. It's factually true. It's just 100% confirmed. No doubt he did not write Project 2025. It's not his campaign. Had nothing to do with him or his people. And yet, until the day the election was held, like the primary argument Kamala Harris was using was Project 2025. It's just there's something about the Democrats where they can just make stuff up, implant it in the minds of their followers, and that becomes the absolute truth, and denying it is just like evidence of your complicity in whatever scheme they imagined. So It's crazy. It's crazy how they do this. Now, some of the claims at least have some modicum of basis. For example, the claims about Matt Gaetz at least had an investigation. Now, the investigation was totally baseless. The claims made to spark the investigation were totally baseless. The investigation was carried out and came to the conclusion that there was no basis to these claims, and yet they're still going to make these claims. And yet they're still going to, and I walk in the break room, CNN is talking about it. I open up Google News, it's the top story. It's like Matt Gaetz, sex trafficking, Matt Gaetz, pedophile, Matt Gaetz. Now, Matt Gaetz seems to be the only appointee of Trump that they're doing this to in the first place. He's also the only appointee of Trump that is not funded and had his entire career sponsored by AIPAC. So that's interesting. It's also an appointee with the authority as Attorney General to actually bring justice to all of these people. Might be why they're so scared of him getting in that position in the first place. But like so many of their claims, everything from very fine people on both sides, suckers and losers, Russia collusion. I mean, they just come up with stuff and just throw it at the wall, see what sticks. And for years, you have to deal with just these insane, baseless lies. I don't know where there's got to be some sort, like, I just imagine some Oracle of Delphi. There's some, drugged out slave girl next to a volcanic vent somewhere that's getting high off of toxic fumes and just coming up with this stuff. It's got to come from somewhere. Somebody's got to be coming up with this stuff to spread out like a virus, this mind virus of theirs. I don't know who's coming up with it, but it's probably fun. It's got to be a fun position to have. You just get to sit around just making things up. Let's say Trump hates the troops. Okay, all right. Let's try that out. Let's give that one a go. We're going to say Trump hates troops. They believe everything else we tell them. Let's tell them Trump just hates the troops for no reason. And it just works. They just do it. It just happens. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand, but they just come up with this stuff. I'm kind of jealous. I wish I could just come up with random crap and just have the entire world believe it from then on out and have pundits on CNN screaming my lie at the face of Trump supporters. It's got to be fun. Let's just say Trump hates the troops and raped a woman at J.C. Penney's in the 80s. Let's say that today. Great. The Gaetz thing. The Gaetz thing is actually more intricate and interesting than most people think. And if you're a regular viewer of this show, you probably heard this story fully expanded on back when it actually happened. Because you understand this happened several years ago and was totally over several years ago. Like this whole scandal happened and there were claims of Matt Gaetz, sex trafficking, blah, blah, blah. We went through the whole process. We explained it all. It was an Israeli blackmail scheme, if you want to know the truth. And I'll get to the details of that. But first, let's just debunk the claims right now with this video. Clip number 3, debunking the Matt Gaetz media lies.
Did Matt Gaetz traffic a 17-year-old girl across state lines for sex? A DOJ investigation into this matter was first reported by the media in 2021, just as Gaetz was coming up for election in 2022. That's weird. In 2023, the DOJ concluded its investigation, admitting that it was baseless and citing a lack of evidence. For this reason, the DOJ did not press charges. In June of 2024, the House Ethics Committee ramped up its investigation, providing an update and hearing more testimony. Ironically, this was again just as Gaetz was up for re-election. Now, in November of 2024, after Gaetz was nominated by Trump to be the Attorney General, reports surfaced that they have a new bulletproof witness who actually saw the sexual acts. How did that happen? Weird how that timing works, right? You want to tell me that this isn't political, that they're not just dragging him through the mud? The DOJ couldn't find evidence against him, but apparently the House Ethics Committee, with far less resources, will? They want you to see it. They want it in your face. They're not trying to send Gaetz to jail. They're trying to break his name down and damage his credibility. Follow me here for more.
It's a total scam. It's all a complete and utter scam. So much so that The View, the hosts of The View, the shrieking harpies that call themselves The View, Sonny Hostin, was forced to issue a legal note on air because they had defamed Matt Gaetz. Now, I didn't realize that. We could have read a note? Okay. Okay, because Alex Jones gave his opinion on an event 10 years ago, and we've been dragged through the courts for the last 3-4 years. Cost us $1.5 billion, and we're fighting for the ability to even broadcast anymore. But we could have just read a note. I didn't realize. They should have let us know. We could have just read a note. Yeah, it's different rules for them, isn't it? It's different rules for them. We can say our opinion, and 10 years later, it's used as a cudgel to destroy us. They can state factually incorrect and thoroughly disproven slander about a sitting congressman, and they have to read a note. And they're not even happy about reading the note. They're mad they have to do that. These petulant, spoiled children. Let's go to clip number 9 now.
On screen. What about gay? Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. That DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
We'll be right back.
They're like so mad. We'll be right back. Okay, we had to do that. Yeah, you lied about the guy. No, you lied blatantly about Matt Gaetz. You said he was a sex trafficker. When the reality is that out of anybody you talk about, first of all, Matt Gaetz is the least likely to be a sex trafficker, considering all the Hollywood celebrities that have graced the View stage. So not only did these people hang around the sex trafficking types, but Matt Gaetz has actually been investigated and cleared of it. So, like, out of anybody on that's ever been on The View, unless they've actually been investigated for sex trafficking and been cleared by the authorities, we still don't know. I mean, it's still up in the air until you're investigated. So Matt Gaetz not only is unlikely because of who he is to be, less likely to be a sex trafficker than most of the people that appear on The View, he's probably the only one that's actually been cleared of it by a thorough and complete investigation. So it's like out of anybody that's been on The View, he is the least likely person to be a sex trafficker. He's probably one of the only ones to actually be investigated and cleared of the charges. So there's that. But this is the way it works. They can make a claim. They can make a charge. They can come up with a lie. They get it investigated immediately somehow. We're 4+ years out of the 2020 election. We still haven't gotten an investigation into any of that. There hasn't been. I know they'll tell you that there is, but there just is. There hasn't been. There has not been an investigation into the election fraud of 2020. But again, this is just the imbalance of everything in the American system. Right? They can just, like, they literally just identify an enemy politician. And I don't know if it's the Oracle huffing volcanic fumes, if it's some sort of novelty dice they roll to figure out what's going on here. It's all a little bit up in the air. It's a little bit vague how they come up with this stuff. But they just do it. They just go, let's say Matt Gaetz is a sex trafficker. That's salacious. Let's say that. And like the next day, the DOJ is like, we have dispatched 14 lawyers to look into everything Matt Gaetz has ever said to try to find some link to potential sex trafficking. And they just get a year and $10 million to investigate whatever ridiculous lie they feel like coming up with. Meanwhile, you've got 10 million people protesting for months on end, desperately trying to get an investigation into voter fraud, something that actually affects the function and participation of our government, and we just get absolutely nothing. It's all, every aspect of our existence is so ridiculously unfair because we let these people be in charge. And this is the thing I think we really need to understand about outlets like The View. While we find them unbearable, like just truly impossible to bear, just watching it for 5 minutes. It's one of those things where, like, you don't realize how much it's hurting your ears until it turns off. You guys ever have that experience? Like, you aren't really thinking about it, but there's some, like your air conditioning is squeaking or something, and there's just some noise. It's just like, and you don't really think about it, but then when it turns off, you go, oh my God, oh wow. Oh, I was so annoying I didn't realize, but goodness me. It's kind of like that with The View, where like if it's on in the background, you're just kind of uncomfortable. You just kind of have this kind of like just sort of slight pain in the back of your head, and you don't really realize why, like a rock in your shoe. It's just sort of uncomfortable, puts you in a bad mood, and then it turns off, and you're like, oh my God, that's what it was. That's why I was feeling like that. It was that incessant chirping I was hearing. What was I saying? I was going somewhere with that. Oh yeah, this is the thing about The View. The reason it's valuable, the reason that it's a good thing to be on air, is because when you see The View and you understand that the people on The View are some of the premier examples, some of the best and brightest that they have on their side representing their coalition, you realize that everybody in government and education and in the university, that's them. It's the ladies on The View. You look around, you go, how is everything so insane? How is everything such crap? How is everything warped and everything unfair and everything not just wrong, but the inverse of what it should be? How did we get to this point? And then you turn on The View and you go, oh, right. These people are in charge. These types of people are running things. No wonder absolutely everything is complete crap all of the time. It's these people in charge. It's this mindset that's guiding our country. I'm surprised we aren't in a worse situation at this point. So that's why The View is valuable as a sociological sounding board, so we can understand how we got to this point. You watch The View, you hear those women talk, and you just imagine trying to run a Fortune 500 company, and that's the boardroom. Are you kidding me? You're trying to run a multi-billion-dollar governmental organization, and you got these women squawking at each other, making decisions. I mean, this is a disaster, folks. This is a disaster. Mario Nawfal reports House Ethics Committee to decide on Gates' report release. House Ethics Committee will meet privately to discuss whether to release its report on former Representative Matt Gaetz, Trump's nominee for Attorney General. The report covers allegations of sexual misconduct, improper gifts, obstruction during Gaetz' tenure. Several senators have called for the report's release before confirmation hearings. Gaetz denies the allegations, and Trump remains committed to his nomination with advanced lobbying for support on Capitol Hill. The committee could release the report, forward it to the Senate, or take no action. There has never been a release of an ethics committee investigation where there has not been charges brought, because it makes no sense. It makes no sense on the face of it. It would represent a flagrant violation of Matt Gaetz' rights as an individual in this country, in the exact same way that if I accuse you of murder, totally baselessly, no proof, but somehow I have the influence. I'm one of the shrieking harpies in The View, and I call my friend at George Soros's office, and they get in contact with their operator in the AG's office, and somehow I pull my strings in this sycophantic network of psychopaths, and I get the investigation going, and they investigate. They look at all of your, they get search warrants for your cell phone. They search your house. They dig through your old photo albums. They get all the information they need, and what they come back with is there's absolutely no evidence this person had anything to do with the murder. They have a rock solid alibi, and they didn't even know the person. Like, the accusation was false. We're not bringing charges. Nothing has been proven. How inappropriate would it be for them to go, but look at all these messages we found. But while we were there, we did see some salacious photos of them, and we can present that to you. I mean, are you kidding me? That's what they want to happen? They want to be able to accuse somebody of something totally falsely, for the investigation to clear them completely of the charges, but then release the information they've been able to gather under the auspices and under the guise of the fraudulent accusation. This is what they want to do. Like, I mean, this is why it makes me crazy. Am I super intelligent? Am I like a super genius? I don't understand how people don't get what's happening here. I don't understand how anybody is playing along with this. You cannot launch an investigation off of fake charges, fake accusations, baseless accusations, have those baseless accusations proven to be false, and then still release the investigation that you did because it benefits you politically. How is that even remotely a suggestion of something that should happen? It has never happened. because of how ridiculous it is. But somehow, I really don't get it. They just like announce these unprecedented, ridiculous, on the face of it, absurd notions that they just release an investigation that was, totally cleared him. And it's just like, suddenly the senators are seriously considering it, and every media outlet is promoting it, and the View's going to be up there going, this is ridiculous. If there's an ethics investigation, we need to get it out in the open. It's like, I don't know. Is my IQ 300? Am I just like 10 times smarter than everybody else in the world? Or like, is something else going on here? Because just basic logic, basic understanding, and this would never even be a topic of discussion. Okay? Why can people not think about things like this? I don't get it. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And it's disturbing. So, I mean, even just the fact that they're like, well, maybe we should. Okay, the obvious response to that, this is the thing, this is what needs to happen. The Republicans need to get this message through their head. If they're doing this to try to destroy Matt Gaetz's potential to be AG, then you take the weapon that they're trying to forge, you take it out of their hands, and you put it to their throat. It's the only way that you deal with this. So if they want to release the ethics investigation that cleared him of the accusations that launched the investigation, then today you need to go, we are launching an ethics investigation into Chuck Schumer. We're going to gather all of his communications for the last 3 years, and whether or not it's proven that he did anything wrong, we'll be releasing the results of that investigation next week. Or maybe we'll give it a month. We'll give it a month. We'll give our guys the license to search everything Chuck Schumer has ever done over the last, 20 years. We'll look at 20 years of his communications, of his bank records, absolutely everything. Because we heard Chuck Schumer raped a dog in Costa Rica. Do you understand? He has been credibly accused of raping a dog in Costa Rica, so I think it's incumbent on all of us that we find out whether this is true. And you launch the investigation, you gather all of the material, and then you release it to us, to InfoWars, and we'll just go through his records. We'll just go line by line. We'll go through everything he's ever bought and everything he's ever communicated online, phone calls. We'll go through it all. Is that the door you want to open? Like, if that's what they do with Gaetz, there it is. The evidence on screen. This is shocking, folks. That's the dog right there. We should blur the dog's face out of respect for the victim. Kiss. My God, it was actually in the act. Folks, this is it. Breaking news. We legitimately have more proof that Chuck Schumer raped a dog than they have that Matt Gaetz raped a underage woman. It's right there. This is it. Launch an ethics investigation, get all of his communications, get all of his bank records, go into his house, look through his sock drawer, and then you come tell us what you found, and we'll release the report whether or not there's any proof of anything I accused him of. Okay? Is this hard to figure out? Do I really need to do this for everybody? I mean, my God. But you absolutely know there are Republican senators going, well, I mean, we have to clear the air. I mean, if it was proven that he didn't do it, then we should clear the air. I mean, you got to understand, folks. You got to understand. You give them nothing, go on the offense, start launching ethics investigations into them. So, every person saying, we deserve to know what's the result of this. Go, okay, well, we're launching an ethics investigation into you. Will you be comfortable when we release the results of that investigation, even though, we haven't found anything? You think the person calling for that investigation is going to go, sure, I'm an open book. Release everything. I don't care. No, they're going to go, never mind. No, never mind. I don't want an investigation on me. And if you do, then this is ridiculous. This is unfair. This is a witch hunt. I mean, they'll flip on a dime. Just do to them what they do to us. For the love of God, we're trying to save a country here. We need Matt Gaetz.
Now, the one thing I want you to do, if I could ask you to do anything for America and Alex and this network and this crew, the one thing I would ask you to do, go to thealexjonesstore.com right now and sign up for Alex Jones VIP Club. It's $30 a month, but you get $40 in store credit. So if you're going to buy a $35 shirt, you might as well sign up for the VIP Club so that you can get that extra $10 and just get the shirt that you want. That is going to ensure that we can fund this operation, fund the next operation, and ensure that Alex always has a voice. They can try to steal his identity. They can try to steal his business. They can try to steal America. They can try to sacrifice humanity in nuclear genocide. But if you go to thealexjonesstore.com and sign up for Alex Jones VIP Club, They'll never take away our voice. They'll never take away our freedom. They'll never take away free speech, and we can save America together. Please go now and be the reason Alex Jones will always be on the air.
Have you gone to the Alex Jones store, folks? Have you gone to thealexjonesstore.com? Of course you have. If you hadn't, we wouldn't be here. That's how important this is. And that's not an exaggeration. That's not a strategy. I'm not a marketer. I don't know the tricks they know. All I know is to tell you the truth, which is if you had not gone to the AlexJonesStore.com and supported us hugely over the last couple of months that we've been working with that sponsor, then we would not have the backup studio. We would not have the money to launch the legal counterattack against the fraudulent bankruptcy proceedings. We would not be on air. We would not be here. And World War III would be on the cusp of being kicked off without a solid, powerful, dissenting populist voice to even talk about it, because they're not even, mainstream media isn't even really talking about this at all, let alone with the seriousness and intensity it deserves. We will be doing that in the next segment with Simon from Florida. Spent the last segment just talking about the principle of what is happening with Matt Gaetz, the principle of, you know, being accused without proof and having that investigation made public. Like, that's just absurd on the face of it. Remove the names, remove the details. Just as a principle, it's insanity. But let's get to the details and the people involved. Politico has this story from, this must have been back in 21. Okay, this was all the way back in 2021. The tangled tale of the Israeli consulate, the Dilbert cartoonist, and the Matt Gaetz case. The Novak incident is one of many twists and turns in the Gaetz case. One of the many only in Florida aspects of Representative Matt Gaetz' sex crimes investigation, one stands out for its utter weirdness: the story of how Israeli consulate staffer, a cartoonist who created Dilbert, and a complicated shakedown scheme tied to a former CIA operative captured in Iran. The most salacious aspect of the federal probe into Gaetz have received saturation media coverage over the months, but scant attention has been paid to the mysterious cameo of Jake Novak, a broadcast media director of the Consulate General of Israel in New York. 3 days before the story broke in March that federal investigators were probing whether Gaetz had sex with a 17-year-old girl, Novak began corresponding with Dilbert cartoonist Scott Adams about the scandal. The two were pals on social media. Novak indicated to Adams that he had inside knowledge of the probe and also suggested he was personally involved in an effort to get $25 million out of Gaetz's wealthy father to help free an American hostage in Iran named Bob Levinson. Novak never said he thought the alleged plan to free the hostages was a crime, according to copies of the text message that were previously reported, whose authenticity were confirmed to Politico by Adams. But on August 31st, a federal grand jury indicted a suspect for allegedly trying to defraud Gaetz's father. The scheme involved a Florida developer, Stephen Alford, who claimed that in return for financing the hostage rescue, he and another man would use their influence in federal government to ensure the congressman receives a presidential pardon, thus alleviating all his legal issues. And believe it or not, this is actually a scam they'd pulled multiple times on different people. So there's some guy named Bob Levinson. He was an Israeli spy that was captured by Iran. Most people think that he died a long time ago. But every year or so, Israelis come out with supposed information, and they go to their, wealthy friends, and they go, "We have it confirmed. It was just confirmed. Bob Levinson is alive. He's a heroic Israeli spy, and we have a scheme to get him out. We think we can get him out. We know he's alive. We think we can rescue him. We just need $25 million to make it happen. Do you want to be a hero? Do you want to be a hero and help us rescue this heroic Israeli double agent that's in prison and or dead in Iran? Because we just need $25 million. It's a great investment. It's amazing. You'll be a hero for all of time. And also, if you don't, your son's going to go to jail for sex trafficking crimes. See, it's a carrot and stick sort of maneuver they pull, and they've done it like multiple times. It's like a regular scam they pull with the same guy, Bob Levinson, in the same way. Now, Matt Gaetz and his father didn't fall for it, stood up against it, which is why the scandal has gone on. So when you talk about Matt Gaetz and the sex trafficking scandal, it's literally an Israeli blackmail scheme run by the Israeli consulate, who texted Scott Adams before the news broke about how they were pulling this off, and they've done it before multiple times. So just search Bob Levinson, $25 million. It's always the same amount of money. They always need $25 million, and they never get Bob Levinson out. Bob Levinson's probably dead. It's the scam they pull to give the appearance of credence to their blackmail shakedown.
You're watching The American Journal with your host, Harrison Smith. Watch live right now at band.video.
In 1814, we took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we caught the bloody British in a town in New Orleans. We fired our guns and the British kept a gunning. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to run it on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. We look down the river and we see the British come.
All right, welcome back, folks. We're connecting with Simon from Florida right now. He's going to give us the breakdown on Russia's nuclear doctrine update. The latest of this is that yesterday, Ukraine launched their first salvo of intercontinental hypersonic ballistic missiles. They hit a weapons depot some 300 miles into Russia. The reports are that something like 6 missiles were fired, 5 intercepted, 1 was able to strike its target. And in response to this, and sort of at the same time as this, Russia updated its nuclear doctrine, as they'd been talking about doing and suggested doing for several months. As, again, another warning to the United States, if you proceed down this track, here's what we will do in opposition to that. So they finally updated their military nuclear doctrine. Putin signed it yesterday. They now have essentially first strike capabilities, as they say, that we're not going to wait to be nuked. If Ukraine, aligned with nuclear powers, starts launching nuclear-capable missiles at us and poses an existential threat to the sovereignty of Russia, we will respond with nukes. I heard yesterday, I was listening back to the show yesterday, and at one point I said tactile nukes when I meant tactical, but they're probably pretty tactile too. Simon from Florida, thank you so much for calling in. You are the exact person I want to talk to about this, because I'm trying to cover the waterfront here. Same time, a bunch of other stuff going on behind the scenes at InfoWars. I have not had time to really dig in to the documents, and even if I did, I'm not sure I could do it in the way that you do. Simon from Florida, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello there, Harrison. Thank you ever so much. It's my pleasure to be with you for what turns out to be the 79th occasion. And I think the key thing that is important for the audience to know, and on the face of it, one would assume that a new strategic document relating to the Russian use of nuclear weapons would be hundreds of pages long, and you wouldn't even embark upon that. But it actually is only 7.5 pages long, with a lot of spacing. So it would appear the document itself is incredibly compressed and condensed and summarized in order to make it approachable. And at the post-G20 press conference, the Russian foreign minister explained that it was necessary for the document to be read in its entirety.
Hey, Simon, I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback on your phone. I'm not sure if you can work with our producer to try to get a little better. That's not just me, right? You guys are hearing that too. Yeah, it's very high. It's very high-pitched feedback. We're going to try to talk to my producer. We're going to try to get you a better connection just so we can hear you fully. In the meantime, you've sent me some stuff. So as Simon tries to get reconnected, I'll read you what we have that Simon has sent. He says, the new Russian nuke doc, and don't bring up my screen, guys, because I'm reading from the personal messages here, but this is what he sent me yesterday. Hi, Harrison. The new Russian nuke doctrine is not long given subject. He did 2 shows. Keywords in doc that are repeated like 11 times is allies, talked about direct energy weapons and space attack weapons. It took immediate effect yesterday. It extends the nuclear umbrella over North Korea, like the U.S. did for South Korea, but may soon include Iran and some key terms unidentified. Some key terms in this are undefined, and we'll have to look at those. It's essentially a summary itself, operational doc. Most are hundreds of pages. This one's only 8. It's presented as a PDF via an obscure link and would not machine translate, and barely any Western journos have read it, and he actually sent me the document itself. This is the type of thing, Simon will just send me documents that are just like Russian official dispatches, and I'm like, what is this, Simon? What are you sending me here? But he's gone through it, he's translated it and looked at the intricate details. Lavrov said at G20, you have to read the whole thing, so no good reading headlines. He spoke to Scott Ritter on air yesterday and read the actual document, but was saying the end of the world. There are still education steps and possibly in dock of demonstration attack. Nothing could be more relevant for InfoWars and this audience. The Biden regime announced another $275 million for Ukraine. Lavrov said this, quote, today we've officially published the fundamentals of the nuclear doctrine of the Russian Federation. Everything is confirmed there and already fixed by law. President Vladimir Putin announced this publicly on September 12th this year. I hope this doctrine will be read not only the way they read the UN Charter, seeing only what they need, but in its completeness and interconnectedness. So September 12th was the review start. So they sort of published this on September 12th. That's when the review process started. It has now been signed into law and is active as of today. I understand we have Simon back. I apologize, Simon, for having to cut you off there. But we do want to be able to hear you well. So thank you for coming back. Please just pick up where you left off.
Hello there, Harrison. Thank you for doing the introduction there, and apologies for the technical difficulties that appear to occur. So this document is about 27 paragraphs long, and I'm now not on speakerphone, so if you're getting any feedback that's on your end, it's not me. I'm in total silence.
I'm so sorry that I don't really know why this is happening. We'll work to figure that out. All right. Yeah. We'll have to. All right.
Let's try and
tell you what. I mean, this show's totally teleprompter free, and we have to roll with the punches sometimes. So Simon, tell you what, we'll try to reconnect in the next segment because I do want to hear from you, and I want to hear what you have to say. And heck, maybe it's easy. You can just film something and upload it, and we could just play the video. I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to try to get around these
Harrison,
these technical restrictions. Go ahead.
The difficulty appears to have stopped. So I'm hearing you loud and clear. Hopefully you can hear me loud and clear.
All right. Apologies to the audience. But again, this is, we don't have things scheduled out days in advance. We sort of do this on the fly. So as long as that high pitch noise is stopped, we'll hear from Simon for as long as possible. So go on, Simon.
Okay. So what is very important to note here is that if people are seeing headlines, and the headlines are very, very scary indeed, but there is still an escalation matrix embedded within the document. And the Russians have told us to read the document in its entirety, but they've only published it in Russian with a tiny hyperlink in an announcement about Putin signing it that takes you to photographs in a PDF form. Okay, so it's very hard to translate. I had a subject matter expert who's fluent in Russian translate it, and there's a great number of revelations in it. But in particular, what your audience will find very interesting is the Russians specifically refer to direct energy weapons and space attack weapons. So there's some extraordinarily interesting tidbits in it, okay? And the word that is repeated most, other than Russia and Federation, is ally.
Right.
And they talk about a common unified plan between Russia and its allies. And they also make crystal clear in the document that Russia is extending its nuclear deterrent umbrella over its allies. So that would appear to include.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Simon. That high pitch is coming back. This is very unfortunate. We're gonna have to reconnect with you. I'm sorry. It's just I don't want to be blowing out the ears of our audience. I'm really sorry, Simon. Obviously neither one of our faults. But work with my producers. We'll either reconnect with you later in the show, or we'll have to maybe connect with you after and do a standalone video that we'll upload on X with Simon breaking this down. But already, what he's told us is more than you'll hear on any other news outlet. So direct energy weapons, space weapons, and the interconnected alliance that Russia is helping to forge as a result of this Ukrainian war. All very, very interesting. And again, I think points to the practice of Russia of doing everything it can. And hey, look, you hate Russia and you think this is all a scam and I'm just falling for it. It's like their behavior, their words align. They always seem to be very cautious and very careful about crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's, following international law to the letter. I know people think like, but it's Russia. They're lawless. They don't care about. No. It's the opposite. America doesn't care about international law. Israel doesn't care about international law. It's the powerful countries that, to a large part, run the courts. Well, when those courts happen to go against them, they just completely ignore them. In fact, I have a video. I think I put this video in today, and I think it's John Thune, and he's like threatening the International Criminal Court with sanctions for daring to say that Israel should stop genociding Palestinians. Right? They don't actually care about international law when you're of that power. In the same way, and it's a constant aspect of this show. When we talk about the leftists get away with it, the right wingers don't. We have to do everything exactly right as right wingers, because if we just accidentally do something wrong, they'll come at us with everything they've got. Leftists can. I don't want to use the word literally, but you have to understand, I'm not saying that they could do this. No, they literally go in front of cameras and say, well, court precedent doesn't matter anymore, so we're breaking the law. Verbatim, they say that. So literally, they break the law out in the open and nothing is done to them. Meanwhile, if we misplace a decimal point, it's the end of the world. It's the same thing on the international stage. America and Israel and our allies get to do whatever they want to whoever they want, whenever they want. And if the international law tries to stop them, we basically threaten the courts themselves with destruction. Totally tyrannical, despot, monumentally stupid way to behave. Russia, Iran, these other countries, they have to stick very closely to the law. So that's what strikes me in all of this, is that Russia is, again, sending out the shot across the bow, sending up the warning sign, playing fair and saying, we're letting you know what our plan is. We're also letting you know we have, allies in this, that we're going to work to protect our allies, and that it's not just Russia. You're not just up against us. You're up against a lot. You're up against a lot of, countries working together at this point. All right. We're reconnected. Okay, we're reconnected with Simon. Seems good. Okay, we'll give it one more try. Third time's a charm. Simon, again, I apologize to our audience. It's a live show. We're flying by the seat of our pants. And again, Simon is already, in the 30 seconds we've been able to hear from him, broken, news that I've not seen anywhere else. So, Simon, direct energy weapons, space weapons, they're touting their alliance. Obviously, North Korea has sent soldiers. That's one of the primary reasons that was used to justify the use of long-range weapons. They said they're going to target the North Korean soldiers that are there. Obviously, China and Russia flying sorties, flying training missions with bombers and fighter jets towards Alaskan islands out of Russian bases, combination Chinese and Russian forces. So they're building and strengthening their alliance. They're talking about new novel weapon systems being deployed. What else do you have for us, sir?
So the category of military threat has been greatly expanded. So they now include military alliances that are adversarial to Russia, expanding up to its borders, which obviously includes Georgia, Armenia, Ukraine, and also, don't forget, Japan, because Japan, their new prime minister, is talking about an Asian NATO, okay? And then they're talking about military forces being expanded or enhanced in border states with the Russian Federation, and that would include Finland as well, okay? So they're saying that they will consider the use of nuclear weapons, albeit that they're under a critical threat to their continued sovereignty and territorial integrity. So there is a threshold there of criticality, okay? But they're saying that in regards to the defense of the Russian Federation and Belarus, that it doesn't have to be a nuclear attack on Russia. It could just be a large-scale conventional attack. In regards to defending Russia's allies, and the word ally is literally used in the document like 11 or 12 times. Okay? It keeps on saying Russian Federation and or its allies, and or its allies, and or its allies. It's every other paragraph. Okay? And they're saying there that if nuclear weapons or other weapons of mass destruction, which are undefined, are used against their allies, then Russia may respond with nuclear weapons. But with regards to Russia and Belarus, which form what is called the Union State, because those two countries are tied extremely closely together, then even large-scale use of conventional weapons against them. Now, in regard to these air and drone attacks that are now ongoing and appear set to expand and add additional types of weapon systems, they've given a full list of what they consider significant there. And they say the potential adversary's possession and deployment of missile defense systems, medium and short-range cruise and ballistic missiles, high-precision, non-nuclear and hypersonic weapons, unmanned strike vehicles of various basings that could be stuff that's flying out of other countries other than Ukraine, and the kiss are in this one particular paragraph, which is 15b, and directed energy weapons that may be used against the Russian Federation. So when I was on air with this last night, the two hosts there, their response was, what the F? They're suddenly talking about directed energy weapons being used militarily against the Russian Federation.
Right. Well, and I guess it makes sense. And you know, if you watch history, you know, like if you pay attention to history, you know that sort of before each world war, there was a smaller war that would break out for World War I. I believe it was Russia and Japan. And World War II was like the Spanish Civil War. And there's always a sort of testing phase of the new technology to where airplanes had just been invented and they weren't sure how that was going to work. And they learned a lot from the Spanish Civil War about, you know, how to carry out bombing sorties, that sort of thing. Ukraine has been a testing ground for novel weapons on the battlefield. Everything like drones obviously have been the big game changer. Has totally shifted the you know, strategy of war, especially, you know, small arms combat or foxhole fighting that's happening in Ukraine. So a lot of new technologies have been sort of employed for the first time on a large scale in Ukraine. It makes sense that Russia would want to update its doctrine in light of the new advances in weapons technology, and apparently that includes directed energy weapons, which we know, you know, Israel has announced they have. I forget what they call it exactly, but it's the directed energy weapon to shoot down missiles, basically a big laser pointer that, you know, superheats missiles and makes them explode in midair, and an addendum to their Iron Dome missile defense barrage system. So what else do we know about these the novel weapons?
This is a different. I completely agree with you, and you're quite technically accurate in that regard. But that's not the context in which they're using it. They're talking about using laser weapons as attack weapons, not defense weapons.
Right.
And they further then expand in the same section, talking about weapons in space, where they say in Part D, the creation and deployment by a potential adversary in space of missile defense and anti-satellite warfare systems, as well as strike systems. All three of those are in space. And you'll recall that we had this alert that was put out by Mike Turner, the Republican chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, who was making all these allegations, which turned out to be unsubstantiated, about the Russians deploying weapons in space. Right. And they're directly quoting him back. But saying, instead of we're doing this, we, the Russians, are doing this, they're saying you, our adversaries, are doing this.
Well, and I wonder, does it mention anything about biological weapons? Because, of course, that was one of the things that Russia said when they were going into Ukraine. They cited the bioweapons factories and even talked about, plans they'd discovered to infect migratory birds so that the birds would fly over and then their droppings would infect. So did they mention biological weapons at all?
They would appear to include biological and chemical within the category of other weapons of mass destruction. Right. What I did find curious was, whilst they talked about attacks on critical infrastructure, they didn't specifically use the word cyber. And the InfoWars audience will recall that Hillary Clinton in the past had said that a massive cyber attack on the United States that took out like the electrical grid or something of that significance would be regarded as the equivalent of a nuclear attack on the United States.
Right.
But they don't quite spell that out in that level of specificity. But what's interesting about the document is that several of these categories of justifications do appear to have already been fulfilled in the last 12 months. Now, when it comes to air attacks, they talk about the massive launch of drones, missiles, or aircraft. And they specifically say tactical aircraft or strategic aircraft. And there, the term, of course, that allows for them to have some flexibility in their response is the definition of massive, which isn't given. So is that 50? Is it 100? Is it 200? Is it 300? And bear in mind that when Iran did their retaliatory attack against the Israelis, they fired somewhere around 300 missiles.
Right.
So is that a massive attack? Then does it depend upon the modernization or the sophistication of the missiles or the payload? What exactly
Simon, we got
that find out?
Yeah, no, I get exactly what you're saying. We have a minute left in the segment. I so appreciate you calling in. If people want to find out more, they've got to follow Simon on X at Simon from Flory2. Simon from Flory2. We got about 30 seconds left. Just what is your takeaway? If you were talking to a person on the street and they said, Russia, nukes, I have no idea what you're talking about. What's the takeaway? 30 seconds, go.
In 30 seconds, I would simply tell them to go to weaponizednews.com, where I spent an hour going through this document sentence by sentence. And it doesn't take as long as one might anticipate. And there's also a drinking game included, so you can follow every use of the word ally.
Right. Well, I thank you so much for calling in and dealing with the technical difficulties here, Simon. Directed energy weapons, WMDs, first strike capability. And nobody else is even reporting on this. Thank God we have people like Simon filling us in. Weaponizednews.com. Thank you.
Most people that research supplements and that are into health know that Irish sea moss and its benefits are documented and incredible. Well, our sponsor, the AlexJonesStore.com, happened to be able to get one of the top suppliers with the highest rated Irish sea moss to give them the authorization to private label it. So now it's Alex Jones Ultimate Sea Moss, exclusively available at the AlexJonesStore.com. It is the ultimate superfood. The iodine, the trace minerals, the elements, the vitamins that are in this are incredible. They give you instant energy, instant focus, but as you take it for a few weeks, you feel the stamina, the libido, the mental clarity. It is a superfood. It is concentrated. So get Alex Jones Ultimate Sea Moss exclusively discounted at the AlexJonesStore.com. And listen to this. One bottle is 40% off. 3 bottles is 55% off. And again, 1 bottle is 40%. Get yours today at the AlexJonesStore.com. And I thank you for keeping us on the air.